Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
Hello there. Welcome back, everybody.
Hope everybody's having a great day out there. How has your day been, guys?
Yes, how is your day? It's quite nice here, actually. It's just a little bit. The energies are a little off.
Yeah, absolutely. The energies are off. We saw somebody driving like crazy, going all over country roads and just like passing us like we were standing still and we were doing the speed limit and then hanging a Yui and then coming up behind us again, looking all psychotic. Thankfully, there was a policeman behind him, pulled him over. But we hung around to make sure that the policeman was going to be okay because just could sense that this person was not in their right mind and they felt dangerous.
I know. I mean, erratic was the word for that. And, it was just so strange how they pulled off and then they pulled up behind us again. It was just weird.
Then we get to the grocery store and there's two policemen pulling over somebody else and approaching the car from either side. Yeah, and it's just getting crazy out there. It really is. There's a lot of stressed out people. And there's also a lot of people, I don't think they're in their right mind. I don't think they're getting good oxygen to their brain. We've talked about those V period accidents that are going on. Yeah, it's all ramping up. And make sure you are subscribed to both channels, Evolutionary with the little bell clicked and EEARTS. Man, there are so many things that we have to touch on. Now, we're going to start here over at Zero Hedge. We see down detector reports, major cell providers all hit with disruptions. I don't know about you guys, but service has been lousy for quite a while, and we always get interference. We've always gotten interference. So, I mean, it's not uncommon for us to go and, go to make a video, and all of a sudden, hey, the router goes down inexplicably, or we tape the video and then when I'm going to upload it, the router will go down. We've had a million of these things go on, but again, we are behind enemy lines using the dark side technologies to communicate, and everything we do is monitored by this dark side. Hey, it's par for the course. We have to expect it.
Well, it's that double-edged sword. You have to make the best of it.
Absolutely, and the guides have said that there's going to be just constant increases in disruption of all kinds. We've talked about a lot of rolling blackouts, and we're going to touch on some more info as far as that goes. There's just, this is a new period we're heading into. We're going to be getting used to all sorts of disruptions. You name it, it's kind of coming.
It is, yep.
This is a phone that exploded. It was a burner phone, literally burst into flames here. A repairman was attempting to fix a customer's phone, and it just blew up on him. The explosion was right here. Thankfully, he didn't get killed, but I mean, this was a big explosion. It really makes you wonder, what are we carrying around in our pocket? It's like, guys, you have that in your pants pocket, and you shouldn't anyway. There is most definitely many reasons why sperm counts have dropped 65, 70%. Last time I heard, it's probably way more than that now. And, I'd never, ever put a phone to my head. Ever, ever, ever. I was one of those people that as soon as smartphones came out, I was just constant migraines. And so immediately it's, put it on speakerphone and try to use it as little as possible. We do have an old-fashioned phone too. But, just it's the technology that we are so used to that we don't think we could live without, but at some point in time, you're going to have to make a choice. And this is totally serious. You're going to have to make a choice. Right now, we're still in a transitionary period, but we are all going to have to make a choice at some point in time between the technology and our own integrity and staying, well, what we used to call human.
I like to kind of mention that the choices that we make right now is just that. They're choices. There is going to come a time when the EMF and, the tablets, the phones, we're not going to be able to tolerate them anymore. So at that point, you're no longer in a place where you have a choice. You just simply can't tolerate the equipment anymore.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of decisions that everyone is going to have to be making in the future and right now. Russia has notified the U.S. that its annual nuclear exercise has begun. Oh, goody, goody.
Yay.
As we see this off a zero hedge, Russia doubles down on dirty bomb claim at UN Security Council. The Kremlin said it's raising the issue of Ukraine's forces plotting a dirty bomb false flag attack in order to lay blame on Russia for a mass casualty event. At the same time, Ukraine's nuclear agency has counter-alleged that Russian forces could be preparing a terrorist act with radioactive materials from occupied Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. And, again, he said, she said, I find it interesting that they're talking this because, again, we've said that the Galactics have said they won't allow a full-scale conflagration to where we have a nuclear winter and, vast amounts of life is gone from the planet. And it's not even because vast amounts of life would be gone from the planet. It's because this would affect other densities, other dimensions per se. And this is something that won't be allowed, thankfully.
No, it's not going to be allowed, but there's sure going to be a lot of noise all the way up until.
That doesn't mean that it's not possible that you will be told and it'll be plastered all over the news or whatever sources are able to get any sort of information out that just what we don't want to happen has happened. This is something that could very well be, and it feels to me very likely that they'll say there was some sort of limited exchange of the N type. But I think what really is going to happen is other technology, things like rods from God, things like lasers, things like what we saw in Beirut, as well as other technologies, perhaps of a sonic variety. There's all sorts of technology out there.
There is, and there's things that they can release into the air and into the water to make things look even, that much more horrible. So we have to remember to really have our wits about us if anything like this happens.
And there's technology that was first developed by the military that could be used, in warfare, that is now everywhere around us. And in fact, probably the majority of people are listening to this via that technology.
Right.
And that technology definitely has radiological properties to it.
Right. And, I've heard things said about these technologies that, there's a good kind and there's a bad kind. When it comes to EMF, there is no such thing as a good kind that can help or benefit your DNA in any way, shape, or form. I don't care who says it.
Russian Defense Ministry is readying their forces and capabilities to deal with radioactive contamination. So, this is so telegraphed that I think, a lot of people would be surprised if there is no sort of event. And again, the 30th, we have Mars going retrograde. We had the eclipse, happening today, and the energies out there kind of, at least to us, they feel very tense and kind of ominous. But, again, look at the reality of this world. New troubling developments with Russia's nuclear arsenal. So says a U.S. official, and then gives no more information at all. Nothing.
How about that?
So, again, planting a seed and just leaving a question mark in all our minds. This report comes as Russia accuses Ukraine of preparing to use a dirty bomb or even an N-bomb as Russia continues its invasion in Ukraine. This from the Jerusalem Post. And we have the U.S. vowing full military defense of allies against North Korea. And the statement is the United States will make full use of its military capabilities, including nuclear, conventional, and missile defense systems. So says U.S. Deputy Secretary of State Wendy Sherman. This is after, of course, all the missiles were shot over Japan and into the sea. So, this is all being telegraphed. Yes. It certainly is loose. Will something happen? Something could happen. I don't think it's going to be nuclear Armageddon. That's just what we get. But again, it does serve multiple purposes because they are ramping up, obviously ramping up. And you have the U.S. charging multiple CCP spies. There you go. Yeah, CCP spies in alleged campaigns to recruit U.S. spies. And, I think when, for instance, MonkeyWorks. Many of you guys probably know MonkeyWorks. And so his headline yesterday drew me in to take a peek. And, he was saying before this came out what the DOJ was going to talk about, he was expecting it to be something to lead up about 45 and Russia. And it turns out it's not 45 in Russia, it's China. So, again, we kind of get used to things going a certain way. It's when something like this happens and it's a little bit unexpected. And I think Gary, one of our family members, been around a long time, was saying, by saying this, he heard somebody that was saying that by saying this, now China has no choice but to strike. But again, I don't think they're going to strike until after this election, for sure, because, this election is going to be all about driving an even bigger wedge between the country. I do expect we're going to see some, instances of what's going to look like tampering, what's going to look like conflict. There'll probably be some actual fights that break out. And of course, there's going to be some contested results. It's just obvious. How could you expect anything else but that? Really, this is a ramping up. This is all, part of the greater drama that we find ourselves in. And it only makes sense when you see the way the storyline's going. Yeah, I don't expect everything to all of a sudden calm down and go back to pre-2016. Even though obviously the story has been tense and with a lot of negativity and a lot of divisiveness pre-2016, but it's building to a crescendo. We could feel it. We could sense it.
They have to do that, do things that way. They have to get it to a point where people will take notice, but not take so much notice that they'll actually do something. Think about that frog in boiling water. By the time the water is boiling, the frog is like, well, it's too late.
Yeah, and what you just said there, well, it's too late. And all this is coming out now. Former U.S. military pilot arrested on China ties. Arrested. And we were just talking about this. Beijing has reportedly hired a lot of veteran British pilots as instructors. And in fact, there's political ties. As we look at this familiar face, there's a lot of political ties that go straight to Beijing. Straight to Beijing. But it's not really Beijing that's orchestrated all this. But they are most definitely going to be taking center stage. They're taking center stage. And, it's going to be basically a conflict which is going to be centered with Beijing first and primary, Moscow, Russia secondary, against NATO. And progressive Democrats formally retract call for diplomacy as Ukraine warhawks steamroll dissent. So 30 House progressive Democrats, led by Representative Jayapal, chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, has Tuesday afternoon issued a complete retraction of their letter sent to the Biden White House urging diplomacy. They completely retracted. Oh my gosh, did somebody what happened? Because they were basically saying, hey, we're steamrolling towards WW3. We watched AOC be verbally annihilated in several little videos. The people are waking up. The people are like, no, we don't want a third world war. Are you guys insane? Well, it certainly seems like the leadership of this world belongs in an institution for the criminally insane. And here you had 30 of them draft a message. Now they're taking it all back. Their tails are between their legs and they're whimpering as they go running into the sunset.
Indeed.
The MIC is really, really powerful. And this is part of it. You can't get past a certain level without becoming complicit and without, coming under this power structure that exists. As you see, HRC claims right-wing extremists already have a plan to literally steal the next you-know-what. Yeah. What can you say? What do you guys think? Former Pentagon chief dies. He had a heart attack. Ashton Carter served as U.S. Secretary of Defense from 2015 to 2017. Suffered a heart attack, leaves behind a wife and 2 kids. Actually, there was a bunch. Every day there's a bunch. There's just too many to mention every day. But we do say our prayers and send healing energy to all those that have suddenly lost somebody that has just died from a heart attack, a stroke out of the blue, or all of a sudden discovering like stage 4 cancer everywhere, because it certainly feels like it's at epidemic proportions all across the globe.
It does. It is. And it really causes a rift in the energy when people's hearts are broken and their lives are shattered and they wake up one morning and everything is completely changed. How do they just simply adjust? They have lives that they were living. They had jobs that they were going to. They had things that they were going to do. And suddenly you lose someone out of your life like that. Well, it's not just that person that's now gone. Those that loved them too, they're having to put some pieces back together and they're not there either. We are definitely feeling those energies. We're feeling those rifts of pain. And I know there's some of you that, consciously or not consciously do take on some of that pain for some people. And you might have a really, really bad off day. Well, what's happening with you is you might be absorbing some of the emotion that other people simply cannot handle. So I encourage you, please be good to yourself. Be easy on yourself because you're helping process a lot of this heartache.
And we have a New York City Supreme Court judge Monday struck down NYC's mandate for you-know-what for all city workers, finding the rule was unconstitutional, arbitrary, and capricious. Not only that, the workers were being reinstated with back pay. Yes, that's a big one. That is a big one. And, the only thing that hits me is this all a little too late? Because it feels like the focus has completely shifted to other things. And obviously, there were certain targets that were perhaps acquired, and now it's just on to another phase and the bigger drama that we find ourselves in the middle of. And, I've heard a lot of this, as you have certain people stating, they're absolutely not going to accept into their body blood from people that have done something. And see, we have totally had this wedge driven between us into those that have and those that haven't. That wedge is not ever going to be removed. I don't see how it's going to be removed. Somebody had said, can you do a video on saying how you can get it out, so to speak? And again, there's a lot of things you can do to raise your vibrations. As we've said, just allowing your body time to detox is so key. I just got done with basically a 48-hour fast, and that's something that is something I do regularly, is somewhere between 24 to 48 hours every other week. It can go a long way. And so, well, what do you take in? Well, water, obviously filtered, RO water as much as possible. Black tea and black coffee. Either herbal teas are some of my favorites. I especially like elderberry with hibiscus, and what was that other thing we put in there? And rose hips.
Yeah, rose hips.
Yeah, elderberry, rose hips, and hibiscus. Everything organic with RO water. And what I do is I actually put them in glass jars and put them out in the sun for 4 to 6 hours to soak up that solar prana, and then put intent to them and give thanks for the water, for it being a healing and cleansing opportunity for my body. So the other thing that we do is we do pretty much daily baths with pink Himalayan salt, borax, and Epsom salts. Mm-hmm. And then we'll also add in tea tree or lavender, some of the essential oils that can help too.
And my body's a little bit different when it comes to fasting. I have to take a much lesser approach. I can do about 16 hours. I could easily do 24, but my body, it goes through stuff so fast. It's like I lose a lot of energy. So I have to be very careful with my fasts. But 16 hours for me is really, really no big deal at all. I don't like to push it to 24, but sometimes I do, just because we want that cleansing effect. And when it comes to fasting, go really slow, learn a lot about it, or at least just some, get your toes wet, understand what it does after 10 hours, after 12 hours, after 16 hours. Your body goes through very, very healthy changes. But you also need to take into consideration things like blood sugar, and if you have any other issues around your health, you have to address those too.
Definitely. And so we do have like a portable sauna that we use to sweat out, as well as we do exercise daily. And so this morning for me was Qigong, mantras, meditation, and yoga, and then just a little bit of like a light type of cardio. Like yesterday I came back and did a half hour on the elliptical machine in the afternoon, and that I like doing that too. I like doing breaking it up into 2 different types of workouts, and do some resistance and do cardio. Try to do cardio 5-6 days of the week. Again, you want to keep moving. Your body purges and processes, and your lymph is your sewer system in your body. And if your body's stagnant, that sewer system is just backing up. And you don't want that. So you got to get moving as much as possible. And if all you could do is just walk, then just walk. We also took the dogs out for a walk. So, that's the type of thing that we'll do all the time. And for us, several sessions of meditation, mantras, Qigong on a daily basis also helps to elevate our vibrations and frequency. Because there is a huge split that's coming. We are going to completely split. Our realities on this planet, there's 2 roads. It's just like Led Zeppelin. Yes, there are 2 roads you can go by, but in the long run, there's still time to change the road you're on. So change that road if it is one that's leading to a much, much darker society in which the world looks like Gotham. And there's another reason why, and we've touched on this, why when we look to these dark dystopian visions, these sci-fi visions like Dark City and the Batman series and many others. Look at how it was in The Matrix and Terminator. Everything's dark. Everything is so dark. Yeah, there's a reason for that. And that is part of the bigger plan. Yes, the world is being terraformed. It's being terraformed before our very eyes, and we don't see it. And today it was hitting me. And, it's weird because, honestly, on a lot of levels, I'm feeling better and better and better and stronger and stronger and stronger. And, it just, at the same time, fighting this sadness because I see what's happening to the world and all the creatures in it. And that can, and it's just, if you have a heart, it's going to pull you down.
I know it's something that we have to look at every day. But then again, that's why the mantras, meditation, the self-care is so important when you look at these things. And your job is to get it out there to kind of tell other people. You really have to take that extra time to care for yourself. All you moms, dads out there, you guys are busy taking care of other people. Don't forget you. Don't forget you. You are so critical to other people.
There's never a time when I go through mantras and meditation and Qigong where I don't come away feeling amazing. And just this feeling of positivity and a feeling of just complete knowing. I mean, there's no doubt. It's not like an intellectual thought process that says that we're more than the body, because when you get used to doing the Qigong, the mantras, the meditation, the yogas, then you understand, because you're able to shift, so to speak, between worlds, and you can sense your energy body, which when your physical body is gone, your consciousness shifts to the energy body. If you're shifting your consciousness to your energy body every single day and building that energy body, there's no fear. And there's also no doubt, because you've sensed this, you've experienced this. This is knowing with the G that we talk about.
Getting yourself grounded, knowing how to ground yourself is really, really helpful.
So here we see, this is an update on Rishi Sunak's cabinet appointments this evening. And again, Rishi, it's interesting. His name is Rishi. And of course, he's from an Indian background, Indian. And Rishis are like the wise men. These are the ones that gave us the Vedas. So he's named after this classification of beings that you could kind of equate to ascended masters, of which he doesn't even look like an ascended puppet.
No.
No, he's not even really a good actor. He tries too hard.
He does try too hard. It reminds me of the second grader who's saying what's on his cue card.
Yes, very much so. So when we look at these, what do we see? We did that out of order. We see WEFers, and somebody that is given the tab a dark fascist connection. Yes. Anyway, it's more of the same geopolitically is what we see. This is interesting. And I'm going to give you guys the link. Now, we get, sometimes we get demonized because of some of these videos, and my spidey senses is saying this one would be that. But it actually shows the nanotech assembling itself, coming together. It's science fiction? No, it's reality. It's absolute reality. New York and New England start rationing heating oil before winter as stockpiles slump by 70%. That's a lot. And fears that families will be left out in the cold. Yeah, this is not a good scenario. So I remember this in Connecticut, and I remember this being, very tough. When you get an oil delivery, all of a sudden, have to lay out $500-$600. And what's it going to be now? At $4 plus a gallon, $4.09 a gallon. Oh my God. Talk about, and I was just saying to Cindy too, I don't know how people are going to keep up with this, with the food inflation. It's just, and obviously I guess people are not intended to keep up with this. It's going to cost more than $2,300 to heat a typical home with heating oil this winter. And you can see it depends on where you're at. Like where we are, it's electricity, and that's what we have for this. But we do have propane. We have portable propane heaters. We also have a small wood-burning stove we could use in case of emergency. We also have backup electric heaters, small portable ones. We do have some solar on top of the RV, which, give us a little bit. And then the fact that I don't even think we really need heat here, because we could bundle up as we did when we were in New Mexico, because it doesn't hardly get below the freezing mark. But for those that are in New England and many of the northern tier states, scary times.
Mm-hmm. Definitely, time to find different ways of energy, I'm sure.
And now we got a wind drought? What? How could you can't make this up. You might think it's impossible to run out of wind, but Europe's wind drought proves otherwise, and it's only going to get worse. Right? I mean, come on. Renewable, but it's not constant. Yeah. Sure. All of a sudden now it's getting less windy, and it's going to get more cloudy. Well, of course they want to block the sun out. We know B. Gates and others, talking about putting clouds up there. Not that it hasn't been happening for 30 to 40 years already.
Trust the science.
Nearly 1 in 10 rent-regulated apartments in New York City were vacant in 2021, and that number in 2022 is probably going to be drastically higher. A lot of people are leaving in New York City, and we've also talked about the exodus from California, especially San Fran and LA, as crime is going through the roof. And again, if you want our take on it, we would not be in a city. Definitely in no cities above 100,000. Absolutely not. I don't think Cindy and I can't take 10,000.
No.
So no, we would not be in any large city, and even if we could handle the energy, which that's why we couldn't handle it. We can't handle the energy and the frequency and all those Wi-Fis and all those towers. We're too energy sensitive. The other thing is to break down a society. I would not be there, and I would do what I could to get out of there. I understand everybody's got to make your own decisions. But in my mind, we're past that point of getting out of these mega cities. I mean, it started to hit me in the early 90s. I'd say late 80s, probably 89 to 91. It started to hit me to get out of the tri-state area, as I grew up 23 miles from the New York border and in Fairfield County, Connecticut. And of course, everything was New York there, and the energy. Now, I grew up with that energy, but as I got to, as an adult, explore and get out of the area more and more, the more I realized I couldn't stand where I was. The energy was just too oppressive, too dark, too fast, too money-driven, too much of the controller society that we find ourselves in. So it did take till 2007 to get out of there, but did, and moved to a small town of about 700 in the Carolinas. And boy, I could breathe after that. And so there's no way could go back to something like that. And in these times, the crime rates it's going through the roof, guys. It's gonna get much more intense than it is now.
Mm-hmm. I know, and it's a really difficult decision that we have to make now, but we have to draw that line and then stick by it. Now is the time to decide what you're going to do, if you want to stay where you're at, if you're going to go somewhere else. If you're going to go somewhere else, at least start looking. You don't have to have anything magical, come upon you. Just at least start looking and see if the universe doesn't somehow put things in order for you to walk that path.
Absolutely. And we do. I've always gotten the feeling too that when it really starts to roll in the US, when we do have that civil conflict going on, like we're going back to the 1860s, and when we also have that global thing going on, like we're going back to 1941, 42, 43, 44, and 45, I think there's going to be massive migration within the U.S. that we've never seen before. if you thought about the California gold rush, or we were talking about how people were promised acreage and a mule and stuff like that, and it caused a lot of people to just, hey, go take their chances and let's head west, young man. Well, this is going to be another mass migration, and it's going to be a lot of people leaving certain areas, which I would feel less secure around the coastlines, with everything that's been telegraphed, and of course the major population centers. Get to somewhere where you can think clearly. Now, maybe for you that's in the middle of New York City, and maybe that's where you want to be, and you're just gonna wing it. Again, everybody has to make their own decision and listen to that voice within, because maybe you're there to anchor and to help people pull together in the darkest of times.
Yes, I mean, that might be your situation, and that's okay too.
Absolutely. So with those vacant buildings too, again, as we're alluding to, how many are people that are leaving the city? How many are people that are leaving the planet, so to speak? Wawa joins the list of retail stores closing and shortening hours due to crime, and this is talking in particular about some of the cities like Philadelphia, which has had some absolutely brutal increases in crime. And, obviously it's not just Wawa. There's a ton of businesses that, they're losing too much because of the outright theft. Cars pulling up, people going in, like multiple cars, like 4 or 5 cars pulling up, and getting a dozen or more, 20 people come into the store. They just do it so quick that the clerks can't do anything. They're gone before anything could really happen. And meanwhile, we have tropical cyclone Sitrang makes landfall in Bangladesh. Now, this is a impoverished area that does get a lot of flooding. And let us send our prayers to everybody over there. Over 10,000 homes damaged, at least 25 people lost in this round of flooding that we've seen all over. This struck me as curious. It's a 2.6 magnitude earthquake. That's nothing that big. It's by the North Carolina-Virginia border. So, not so active, but you will see some. What was interesting was, I alluded to Monkey Works. He was showing that Air Force One left D.C. yesterday without JB in it. And it was, for some reason, pre-positioned over in this area. It was over in North Carolina, towards the area where this particular quake came, as you see. So it's just weird, just really weird. I don't know. Are they blasting out some more bunkers down underground in case there's a big conflagration? Maybe. I think most of our D.C. leadership, they head to West Virginia when it hits the fan. But also, again, this is a sad situation, but it's true. There is no mass shelter for the American public. There is in Russia for the Russian public in case of an end war.
Yes.
But the other thing too that happened is this over here, 5.1 over in the south. It's a little south of San Francisco. It looks like it's centered southeast of San Jose. They're calling it Alum Rock, California. 5.1. There's also a smaller one too, just showing. There you go. 2.9, Seven Trees, California. So I wonder if any of you guys out there felt those. First major snowstorms of the year hit Montana, Utah, as well as Alberta and Saskatchewan. Lots of snow coming on down. It feels like it's going to be a cold winter, guys, but hey, never know.
Nope, we don't.
And I wanted to share this. Because, again, I know so many people mean right, but they just don't understand even. They just don't understand. They just go by what they were taught and brought up with. So if we ever forget we're one nation under God, then we will be a nation gone under. That was a quote by Ronald Reagan. And Myra Flores is somebody from Texas, U.S. House candidate. And, again, I guess I'm a equal opportunity harasser, because I was just like leaving a message for Michelle over there, the governor of New Mexico. Well, if you do lose, we might be looking to come back to New Mexico. Just that's only if you lose, because we were there during lockdown, and there's no way we would go back with her in control, because again, these states are all going to end up breaking down to some degree, and it does feel likely that we're going to break up into 4 or 5 different segments at some point in time in the not too distant future. And you agree that still seems like the most likely roadmap.
Energetically, it feels very, very feasible. Yes.
And many people will look to Ronald Reagan and idolize him. And again, he was an actor, and he was a better actor as a politician than he was in Hollywood. I don't know if any of you guys saw Bedtime for Bonzo, but it wasn't really, very convincing. He also took part in the dark rituals at Bohemian Grove. It's, again, we got to understand, if you want real change, you're not going to get real change with the same ping pong ball going back and forth over the net. You got to change the whole game. And then again, when we look to one nation under God, what does that really mean? Because again, many people will think they're talking about the creator of the universe, but are you really? And we brought up Colossians 3:22. Fathers, do not provoke your children, so they will not become discouraged. Okay, well, that's good. Slaves, obey your earthly masters. Slaves, obey your earthly masters. That says everything. Everything. This is the Berean Standard Bible, and we could change it. There's all these other different ones to look at. And, I've gone through and looked at just about everyone I could get my hands on at different times during the course of the last, 46 years or so. And now it's so easy just to click it. Obey your earthly masters in everything, not only to please them while they are watching, but with sincerity of heart and fear of the Lord. The best sermon I ever listened to was by a Lutheran pastor. His name was Rusty, and that was in South Carolina, but he's since moved on to Texas, and so he's actually not too far now. And it was a Sunday service for Easter Sunday, and he was talking about how the opposite of love is not hate, but it's fear. So fear of God makes no sense. It truly doesn't. And our dealings with the benevolent beings, there's no fear there. There's no fear there at all. It's the darkness where there's the fear. So again, and this is Colossians. This is in the New Testament. There's actually multiple. There's probably several dozen, and I've done videos on it, references where it's basically telling slaves how to behave and how to deal with your slaves. Slavery is never okay. Never. At any time, in any place. Never, never, never. And I don't buy it when you could say, well, that was accepted back in the day. Well, there's a lot of things that are wrong right now, and we shouldn't accept them.
No, we shouldn't. And, I'm just looking at that sentence, and it says, slaves, obey your earthly masters, as opposed to what? Unearthly masters? Or is it slaves? Disobey your earthly masters? I mean, there's all kinds of stuff that you could look at that and pause and say, what the heck am I reading? And really sit with that, sit with that. What am I reading? And so many people have this energy that they really want to stick with this certain book out of loyalty because their parents, introduced it to them, and their parents are good people, and your parents' parents are good people, and you want to be loyal to them. But because you want to be loyal to them, does that make the book right? Does it mean that it's right? I mean, there's some things we need to look at in that Bible that they give us and tell us to follow. And if you don't follow, you're going to burn in hell for eternity. We need to look at that and really sit with it. It's a time where we are moving into the light of information. And we're learning new things. And we can't be afraid to learn new things because this brings us expansion.
So that 322, Skull and Bones, and both Bush presidents and their father were part, as was John Kerry and many other notables, part of the Skull and Bones Society at Yale University. And on their logo, it has that 322. And there's different thoughts on what that 322 represents. But to me, you could take it to be Colossians, as we were talking about, or you could take it to be Genesis. So after the, Garden of Eden and biting the apple, the Lord God said, the man has now become like one of us. Okay, wait a minute now. And that's not the Holy Spirit, and that's not Yeshua the Son. As in, this is a reference to the Trinity? No, not at all. There's no way. That's no reference to the Trinity because, the word is Elohim and it's in the plural. And again, it's the mighty ones. And this was never about the creator of the universe. This has always been about this one group. This one group we've talked about ad nauseum. So the man has become like one of us, knowing good and evil. He must not be allowed to reach out his hand and take also from the tree of life and eat forever. And this is why we have this whole system in place, which is about keeping humanity down. Because the ultimate controllers are not humans. This is totally an Anunnaki statement. And again, any story you see in the Bible has precedents that are much, much older. 1,500, 2,000 years older at minimum. And there's more copies that are legible and complete, giving you the whole stories. So, again, the Bible is most definitely, it's the most published work in the world. Number 3 is the Quran. Number 2 is the works of Mao. Aha, that might be coming up to number 1 soon. As we see these beings, and the reason why they dressed like this, because you might think that these guys would dress like modern astronauts. No, they dressed like the people that they came and conquered, because it would make them more comfortable. They would fit in more.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's something that they did, because we come down and they want to conquer, they're going to have to fit in to a certain extent. And of course they know more. Of course they know how to manipulate. These beings are eons ahead. So they're able to take these groups of other beings of a more innocent nature and get them to do as they're told. And the illusion that we have now is the illusion that we have freedom. They've allowed us to feel that we have freedom for quite a long time now. But as we can see, every day that goes by, we're realizing that there's no such thing as an election. It's all selected for us. And we have to realize that. The illusion, it's breaking down big times. But I think the key is to see it for what it is, to look at it and see it for what it is, because then there's power in that knowledge, and we can move forward with the certainty of these are not nice beings.
They themselves are conquered slaves.
Yes.
They themselves are conquered slaves, carrying out the wishes of their masters. This is how it works. It's just one slave controlling another slave, on down the line, to the point where most of humanity doesn't recognize it is enslaved. But we are enslaved to the system, and this is their system. And again, it's getting out of the system that leads to the light at the end of the tunnel. So, there have been, and I'm not going to go too long because we're going to touch more on other videos upcoming, and we've touched it in the past too. But there is a great splitting that is coming up, and we'll work on putting together a video going more in depth, because we've gotten more information on how that split occurs. And there is a splitting. And so it's all a matter of priorities, because this is also something that goes on. Again, it's a spiritual battle. So what does that mean? Multi-density, multi-dimensional, so to speak. And it's not over when we necessarily leave the body. If we adopt their ways, we can become just like they are. No longer they no longer really have free will. They're part of a collective. And, we, on the natural path of things, as we ascend, will become part of a collective, a natural order of collective, of a benevolent kind. These beings are being absorbed into the darkness and the shadows from which the enemy, the true enemy, comes.
Mm-hmm. And to create this separation of energies, there's really just one thing that we have to keep in mind, and I'll leave you with that, because this one thing is the important thing, and it's going to get you on your path.
And as always, guys, thanks for your support over on Patreon, where you could become part of the family over there for as little as $1 a month support while we're still in this system, as we try to work our way out by working together as much as possible and sharing ideas as well. Also over on Ko-Fi, where you could do a one-time donation and also monthly as well. And also check out Medicinal Foods. Use coupon code EEA and you'll get a discount, as well as it does support the channel. Lots of good stuff there for detoxing, building your immune system. As always, may you be blessed by the true creator of this universe, and may the original plan for this planet and this universe be restored.
Indeed. Source bless and namaste.
Namaste.